And a very good morning to you, Nigeria. It feels good to be back after a month away. And judging by the headlines, I wonder if I ever felt or ever left at all, because the more things change here, the more they sound exactly the same. So let's start with the oil sector, shall we? Our national ATM. This week, crude production finally ticked up between 1.7 and 1.8 million barrels a day. Government reforms, new drilling, good news, I would say, some would say, except we immediately managed to drill into chaos. PENGASSAN, the oil workers union, that's the senior staff oil workers union, staged a brief strike that slashed output by 16%. One day we are celebrating increased barriers or barrels. The next, we are counting lost barrels like missing goals or missing goats. And speaking of barrels, Aliko Dangote's refinery has decided it's done selling petrol in Naira. Yes, Nigeria's biggest refinery, what was dubbed as our saving grace, is telling Nigerians to pay in dollars. Cha-ching, the Benjamins, baby. So imagine walking into your neighborhood buka and you're about to get your usual abula or amala. And the owner says, sorry, we only accept euros. For this place, this is what it looks like when your economy is so stressed, even your currency needs therapy. On the other hand, President Bola Tinubu, meanwhile, says the worst is over. Nigerians heard that and asked, sir, over for who? Us? Because inflation is still strangling households. There's few queues that are growing and food prices are laughing at our paycheck. It's so bad I don't even have pockets. So the bitter medicine always works if the patient survives long enough to recover. So elsewhere, tragedy shadowed the week. In Abuja, TV presenter and lawyer Somtochukwu Maduagu fell to her death while fleeing armed robbers. And our heart goes out to her, and for her sake, I am wearing pink today to honor her. And in Kogi, a boat accident on the Niger River claimed at least 26 lives. In Kwara, 12 forest guards were gunned down by bandits. Now, 3 different states, one grim theme, which is Nigerians are running, rowing, and working for their lives, and too many are not making it back home. So as if the hardship wasn't even enough, nature added its reminder. Flash floods, swimming pools in people's homes. It swept across parts of the country, displacing families and drowning farmlands, while state governments again discovered that rainfall in Nigeria is somehow an annual surprise. They were shocked. But in the midst of all of this, in the midst of everything, Nigeria marked 65 years of independence. The National Arts Theatre in Lagos has been renamed after Nobel laureate, and that is none other than the cultural icon himself, Wole Soyinka. It is now permanently carved into our landscape and renamed after him. A small but bright spot in a week of stormy clouds. So here we are, barrels rising and falling, Naira wobbling on its own, leaders promising, citizens mourning, floods threatening, culture enduring. I will say welcome to Nigeria, where the news never takes a holiday, even though I try to. But apparently, I just did. And believe me, it is good to be back. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get started, by the way. I hear there's a look-alike on this show that looks exactly like me.
Good morning, Judith.
Good morning, Queen.
It's good to have you back.
It's good to be back. This is my first time with you on air, so I'm excited.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's do this.
Let's get started on Breakfast Extra.
Sure.
Welcome aboard.
Good morning and welcome to Breakfast Extra for a Saturday and the first for the month of October, of course, with Judith. We've got a packed lineup of stories, debates, and special reports that cut across politics, security, health, and development, all shaping conversations on the continent. This morning on the Big Report, we ask, beyond the anthem, how do we turn brotherhood into action? 65 years after independence, what really holds Nigeria together? On the big story, we'll be counting the gains and the losses at Nigeria's 65th birthday. with voices from public affairs, security, and archives, unpacking where the nation has risen and where it has stumbled. We'll also take you into the Dangote Refinery labor crisis. PENGASSAN may have suspended its strikes, but unions warn the crisis is only paused, not ended. What does this showdown mean for workers, investors, and Nigeria's energy future? On Wellness Central, we turn to a silent but deadly crisis on safe abortions. Experts are pushing for policy reforms, and we'll hear why misinformation and stigma are costing women their lives. We'll also spotlight the controversy in Delta State, where a NAPTIP raid on an orphanage has stirred accusations of adoption. On Extra Special, we ask hard questions, rescue or overreach. And on Focus Africa, we head to Cape Town, where Africa Energy Week has kicked off with promises of over $13 billion in deals. But will these investments unlock real growth for Africans, or just pad the numbers? It's a full morning of conversations, reflection, and analysis, and we're just getting started.
Oh, yes,
and now,
indeed.
you know, hey, I'm excited.
I really am. I am excited as well.
It is so good.
Gosh, so I got to tell you a story.
Tell me.
Okay, so I told my folks the very first weekend that I was not on air. And the reason was because I didn't want them to get worried because I was sick that first weekend, right? And so I didn't tell them I was on air. And so my uncle first tuned in. And then the whole time from back, is that Abigail? Oh, I shouldn't have said that. That's my younger sister. It's like, wait, is that Judith? Is that Abigail? So it was kind of confused. And then when your name comes on the lower third, and he sees Queen Celeste, he calls my dad immediately and goes, "Where did they find this person?" She looks exactly like my younger sister. And my dad's like, "Oh, well, I haven't tuned in. I'm just waking up, and I'm just having breakfast." So he tunes in, sees her, sees you, and then he calls me and goes, "Is everything okay?" Because again, they're workaholics, and taking time off work is alien to them. I said, "No, I'm not feeling fine." It's my colleague. He says, "She looks like Abigail."
At this point, we need to do a DNA test and just find out. Maybe we're cousins and all.
I'm telling you, because
even when I started working here, I came over like, "Oh, have you seen your lookalike?" I'm like, "Who's that?" It's like Judith. I said, "No, I haven't seen her." We're like, I said, "Oh, hello." So it's good to, you guys loaned me in here, and you've not been here for a month. And, trying to be you, because I'm sure a lot of people tuned in to see Judith and they saw me. And now that you're back, and
I bet you've heard the thoughts really well, and well done.
I did my best.
I think your best is very stellar. Well done, well done. You have. I mean, it's not hard. It's very difficult to wake up as early as possible. That very early on weekends and come on.
I don't know how you do that. So
the 3 hours is very tasking as well.
About it.
Very tasking. So well done.
Thank you.
Well done.
That's good to have you back.
Queen, everyone. A round of applause, please, for Queen. Yeah, there we go. Let's get started with our dailies for this morning.
Yes.
We're going to get started with the Nation newspaper. We're bringing you all the major newspapers coming out of Nigeria. The very first one there is the Nation newspaper for Sunday. And this one, the very first one that comes up, Saturday, I beg your pardon. See, that's what happens when you're away for too long. You start to miss the dates there. Queen, you want to help me with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So for the Nation, I'll start right at the top. It says, "I'm committed to making Southeast great again." That is from our President Tinubu, because OT seeks Southeast South-South rail line to boost trade. Beside it, it said Nigeria Meta up to settle $32.8 million. I like all these numbers. Privacy breach fine. And below, of course, it says Jonathan, Boko Haram once nominated Buhari as negotiator. And, it says he expects insurgency to end under late president. You're making false start to 2027 campaign. Garba Shehu hits back at Jonathan. Obasanjo, new thinking needed to end Boko Haram. Lee Sheribu, others scar on Nigeria, says Bishop Kuka. And below that, a man from Delta. One woman can't satisfy a man's passion. Delta billionaire who just married 19th wife. I'm not sure he's in Nigeria. I'm seeing what's going on, but congratulations, sir.
Oh, is it from Delta? I have a myth about Delta. Let me know if it's because this is national television.
No, 19th wife.
Keep going.
Of course, beside it said, Osasi Godaro said, relocating to Nigeria, my boldest risk. Such an amazing girl.
Yeah, and she's done pretty well for herself.
Yes,
Let's move on now to the Saturday Telegraph, shall we? The very first one there at the very top, it goes, Jonathan, I am surprised Buhari couldn't end Boko Haram insurgency. Terror group never nominated Buhari as mediator. Garba Shehu counters Jonathan. You can find the story on pages 5 and 7. Right next to it, the courts stops IGP Egbetokun from enforcing tinted glass policy. Orders status quo maintained. You can find that story on page 3. Afenifere, land grab behind terrorism in Kwara and Kogi. You can find that story on page 3. And it goes on to says types of weapons boldness indicates sponsorship by powerful forces. That's on page 3 of the Saturday Telegraph. Another story you can find here, but this time on economy, as Cardoso says $7 billion forex backlog settlement contributed to external reserves growth. That story there is on page 3. At the bottom there is Cardinal Onai Iyekon to Tinubu. He goes, your reforms should end insecurity, corruption, says they must deliver on development, good governance, laments too much poverty in the land, and wants Nigerians to find rulers who can make life bearable. You can find that story on page 2. And Tinubu Igbo leaders replicate Okpara's brand of politics. You can find that story on page 5. Fuel scarcity persists in parts of Nigeria. Challenge to be over weekend. That's from Menman. You can find the story on page 2. And lastly, for the Saturday Telegraph for today, man, successful execution of Nigeria First policy will spur industrialization. And that's a minister there who restates federal government support for made in Nigeria products. That story is on page 26. Pretty much very interesting headlines for the Saturday Telegraph.
Look, a lot of people looking for reforms. Let's pray that it works.
There we go.
Because, there's a wish list for every birthday. So let's move to the Guardian weekend. So right at the Guardian, right at the top, it said Professor Steve, providing global leadership with African roots, building a lasting legacy. Beside it, it says, message from CRY, the beloved country. And of course, my ambition to govern Ekiti is rooted in genuine desire to serve my people, says Ojo. And of course, the very big picture on page, where you find on page 8 to 10, inside story of Soyinka Center for Culture and Creative Act. And beneath, Oshun's LG funds, court extends account freezing order till October 9th. You find that at page 2. Afenifere fumes over incursion of terrorism inside Kwara and Kogi. That you find on page 3. And of course, police insistence on ensuring CMRSI certificate ridiculing Huriwa. That you find on page 3.
All right. And we move on to, by the way, how do you feel about, National Theatre being Wole Soyinka Center for Culture?
So my question is, I don't have an issue with the renaming. Of course, we had talked about Charlie Boy and Olamide rename. I think that's not really our problem. We should focus on other things, but I don't mind it. He's somebody that has done so much in terms of bringing good to Nigeria, so I really don't mind it.
I mean, these comments during the renaming was very interesting. Watching him, I think the test of knowledge or the test of one's intellects is when they're able to say, I made a mistake and I'm eating my words. You know what I mean? And him saying that, I was like, this is the reason why sometimes it can be polarizing, but we love you. You know what I mean? That's when he said that. I was like,
he's human.
He's human. He's human. And that's a test of intellect and intelligence from a person when they're able to say, oh, look, I was wrong and I ate back my words. Because he was always someone who always was against, legacy projects and people naming projects after him. And then sitting there in this room being honored is like, I'm sorry, I got to eat my words. This feels good.
I think it was well deserved. That I also feel like for me, before when you say National Theatre, it was terrible. It wasn't something you want to go. But now, looking that, it's been rebranded, well, you see it, you're like, oh, this is Lagos.
Right.
So there's something to look up to. So I'm just hoping that we can do more of that, because I'm tired of hearing bad news in Nigeria.
Yeah, and also big shout out to the bankers forum, I think that's what it's called, and a committee, and them deciding to refurbish and give a facelift to something that is not just monumental but also a national national artifact that at this point it's like a museum, because it's synonymous to Lagos. Do you know what I mean? When you think about National Theatre, all the symbols that is Lagos, National Theatre comes to mind.
Yes.
And now being Wole Soyinka, giving what he's done for African literature, Nigerian literature, I think is commendable. So congratulations to you, sir. Professor. We move on now to Saturday Punch newspaper. I think that's our last paper for today. And the very first one here, just by the side, Made Kuti, that's the Kutis are related to the Soyinka. Do you know that?
I heard about it.
Yeah, well,
because I'm in theatre, Fela and the Kalakuta Queens, so I have
so they kind of have relations. Well, Made Kuti here says, growing up in African Shrine made me free. You can find that story on page 16. That's for the entertainment there for the Saturday Punch. Right next to it is on security, as Buhari's aide to Jonathan. Stop lying. Boko Haram wanted to kill Buhari. You can find that story on page 27. Cover up, Nasarawa cops freed after murder of 7 Lagos traders. That story is on page 8. Inside bandit bloody attack that emptied Kwara community. That story is on pages 2 and 4. I hid in the roof while they killed traditional ruler brother. I considered suicide after losing husband. Relatives, you can find that statement there is from the widow. At the bottom, you're a deadbeat father. Oluwo ex-wife slams monarch. Interesting. Isn't that like half of Nigerian fathers? Moving on. Right next to it, sad tales of youths betting lives, health for thrills. You can find that story on pages 20 and 21. And at the bottom there, tinted glass permit. Police seized 210 vehicles in 6 days. Court extends injunction on Osun local government funds. That story is on pages 27 and page 10. And lastly, a very sad story here. This one has pierced the heart of pretty much all Nigerians, especially young Nigerians who are aspiring. And also in our industry media, you can find the story on page 11, the death of TV anchor and lawyer Somto's death pierced my heart like arrow. That's from her father. That statement there is from her father. Finding out that she loved pink. I was like, my first appearance in this show, I was going to wear pink. Yeah. Just to mourn her. Very, very sad indeed. Well, pretty much all the newspaper we can take for today, by the way. Now we're going to get started officially on the program this morning. Now, we do know that we celebrated 65 years of independence, and let's get started with our big report. It's been 65 years after Nigeria's independence, and the call for unity still echoes across the nation. We sing it proudly in our anthem, to build a nation where peace and justice shall reign. Yet the reality often falls short. From NYC camps to football stadiums, Nollywood to Afrobeats, culture has helped bridge divides where politics has deepened them. But beyond the lyrics and the flag waving, the question remains, how do we turn brotherhood into action, not just words? And so to explore this question, our reporter, Amazing Adesanya, took a closer look at the places where Nigerians come together and the gaps that still remain. Here's her special report. It's called Beyond the Anthem, Brotherhood in Actions, Not Words. Take a look.
Though tribes and tongues may differ, in brotherhood we stand.
In brotherhood we stand.
Those words from Nigeria's national anthem carried the hope of a young nation that gained its independence in 1960. But the optimism captured in these images was soon tested by a bloody civil war. Out of its scars came a bold experiment in unity, the creation of the National Youth Service Corps in 1973.
One of the institutions that have endured so far is the National Youth Service Commission, which was established immediately after the Civil War in Nigeria. And one of the reasons it was established was to bridge the communication gap between the West and the East, and also the North. And so far, So far, so good. Over 50 years after, this has been the only enduring institutions that we can actually comfortably say we have.
If you ask me the state of NYS as of today, I will say that, of course, the reason for it is still noble, to foster unity among the Nigerian peoples.
50 years later, the NYC still carries that vision, but Nigeria has found unity in other unexpected places through the roar of stadiums, the beat of music, and the pride of cultural festivals. When the Super Eagles score, chat fades away. Nollywood movies and Afrobeat songs now echo across every corner of the country, offering a common identity and shared pride.
Nigeria should gain it, should be self-dependent, it should gain self-independence in 1956. And the Northerners said no, that we were not ready. And that eventually led to Kano riot of 1956. And that was just 4 years before independence. So as at the time we were gaining independence in 1960, it was obvious to the leadership at the time that they had primary assignment to ensure that the country was unified. So the unity in diversity that they're talking about is the fact that they recognize the fact that yes, we are different orientation, but yes, we are the manifest destiny, like I said earlier, to live together.
But if culture and sport binds us together, what then tears us apart?
I doubt so much if we live by what we say. We said, though tribes and tongue may differ in brotherhood we start, but in reality that is not what is obtainable. That is not what we see. Even in the federal character, in the federal appointment, you find out that there seems to be some particular people that are favored than the other. I will say no to politics because it seems to be more divided when it comes to the issue of politics.
In Nigeria, we are divided. We are no more united in terms of crisis and in terms of leadership. Leadership and crisis, to me, is what divides us in this country.
To some extent, I think we still live by that. Looking at the situation of the country now, even at what we are passing through, you could still see some people that are willing to help. It means there's still brotherhood, there's still togetherness in this country.
I think the major thing that unites us in this country is sports, in the sense that sports brings unity among different tribes. There is no tribalism when it comes to sports.
65 years on, unity is still Nigerians' greatest strength, but history shows it cannot be left to slogans or songs alone. The test is to leave those words in classrooms, in stadiums, elections, and in everyday life, until brotherhood becomes not just an anthem, but a reality. In Lagos for News Central, I am Amazing Adesanya.
Nigeria, may be blessed.
Good morning again, of course, and welcome to our first big story. October 1st, Nigeria marked 65 years of nationhood. Today we pause to reflect, to celebrate, and to take stock. What have we gained? What have we lost? And what must we confront to move forward? In his recent Independence Day address, President Bola Tinubu spoke of survival, resilience, and racing against time to redeem the promise of our founding generation. Meanwhile, commentators have urged us to cease blaming Nigeria for self-inflicted wounds and instead recognize a shared responsibility for lost opportunities.
So in this hour, we ask, at 65, is Nigeria stronger or more fragile? Joining us in the studio to help us answer these questions are two very important voices that will be bringing sharp lenses on public affairs, security, and cultural memory. First, we have in the studio Joe Femi Dagunru. He is a public affairs seasoned public affairs analyst, and he joins us here in the studio. Also joining us is Samson Toromade. He is a storytelling lead at archive.ng, and together they will be bringing insight. And what I love about our panel of guests today is that they are from both sides of Nigeria, young and old. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Sherman, it's good to have you again. Thank you for coming on. First of all, great article that you did with archive.ng, being able to chronicle the speeches of each president in the last, each president and head of states in the last 65 years of our independence. But we're going to get into that. But let me start with you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us again, once again. I mean, from the beginning, and just watching not just the reports that we played earlier from our reporter, Amazing Adesanya, but also the president's speech and the trajectory of this country when it comes to democracy, governance. How well are we at 65? Are we fragile? Is the divide wider than it's ever been from our founding generation?
Well, basically, when you look at this country the way we are still united, whether we like it or not. You know, we can bring politics into it to determine whether we are divided, we are fragile, we are sensitive, whatever, but we are still united. That's the most important thing. And I can understand the fact that most people, we want to say a lot about 1960 today, but let's look at where we are and where we are going. The past can only guide us. We've missed a lot of things, and we've missed a lot of activities. We've missed a lot of chances. But is that where we are going to just sit down and continue to, you know, lament on what we have missed, what we have done wrong? But the most important thing is here we are now, 2025. What can we do? Where are we going to 2026 and 2027? I think that's the most important thing, and that is the thing that most Nigerians want to know. You see, politics has always been opposition, and the other one who's in government will always say, I'm right. Opposition will always come back and say you are wrong. But what are you going to do for the country? What are you doing for the country? If you go on the street, just the normal people, they will tell you the problems of this Nigeria, and they will tell you as well solutions. They will prefer solutions to the problem. But the government, are they listening? Are they doing what is right? Where are we? You know, some few weeks ago, you see that the world is, you know, changing. You know, they are finding, researchers are making efforts to defeat cancer, to defeat HIV. I mean, you now see Africa, you see Nigeria, where our researchers, what are they doing? ASU is saying, look, we'll soon go on strike. Is that what we want to build our young generations with? What is going on? Teachers are not being paid well. Schools are not being, you know, well, you know, equipped. You know, laboratories are not there, libraries are not there in most of these schools. So these are the things we've missed. When I was going to school, fully loaded laboratory, fully loaded, you know, libraries, and you are enjoying it. You don't even feel any difference. But now I see schools where you have 70 people in a classroom. I mean, that's annoying when you see that. But is that where we are going? Is that what we want to do? These complaints will always be there, and as at now. But are we going to keep complaining, or we want to find a solution to it? The 1960, there was no private refinery, but today we have a private refinery, and more will still come. You know, so we have to balance it and not looking at the extreme negative and leaving the positive side of it.
Quite interesting.
Yeah,
I was just lost in, you know, just taking it
Taking it into cognizance,
that was amazing. I think I will go to Samson. You are, you know, representing the younger generation and, you know, doing storytelling. And Judith had mentioned, you know, your article about, you know, former presidents and their statements. So for me, what was the narrative of the story that got you to want to talk about the stories or illustrate things that are not being told properly?
Yeah, I think the central question that we wanted to answer with that article was to just what does president say about Nigeria in like these speeches? What does it say about Nigeria's journey, right? Because independence is basically like our birthdays, and when everyone has birthdays, they take stock. What do I do this year? Where do I want to go in the next couple of years, right? So it was, if you had to read like all of these speeches over 75 years, what would we discover? So that was the central question we were trying to answer, but also just in the sense of what does it tell you about Nigeria? So from doing that story, for example, we found that Nnamdi Azikiwe was talking about tribalism like very seriously in 1965. Wow. He was basically rebuking everyone like, oh, you know, we have to be united. We have to stop saying things this way. We have to work together in a way that made me feel, I was reading, I'm like, am I in 2025? Do you understand? And from reading that speech also, for example, we discovered that Gowon was talking seriously about, oh, we're going to end epileptic power supply in his 1974 speech. Obasanjo was saying the same thing in his 2001 speech. Buhari Tinubu could easily say the same thing today, right? So it's plotting things that have not changed or things that have. So also, for example, I think in 1965 speech, also, Azikiwe has said something about he's going abroad for medical treatment. And it's the same thing that's happened over the past few administrations. And it kind of, in a way, tells you the progress or non-progress that we made in the healthcare system, for example. And so, like, when you take, like, all of those fragments, it tells you, or it gives you a picture of where has Nigeria really progressed, what has changed. And in that sense, it is, how do we change that? How do we fix it so that another 65 years from now, it's not the same things that are coming up in these speeches. There has to be a sense of, we have made progress. We have stopped talking about this. We don't promise this anymore like we are 5 years old. We are 65 now. We have new problems.
I'm glad you're saying that we have new problems, because that's the argument I was making on the bus ride to work with my fellow colleagues. And I was saying that this dispensation and this new era that we find ourselves, this AI technological-driven era, means that the odds sometimes can be in your favor, but also the challenges are completely different from what it was back in 1960. But that also means that your challenges can be tackled better, all thanks to technology. But when we think about, Mr. Josie's submission, when he said that, back in his day, laboratories were stacked, there was bursary, there was things like that, and it was somewhat better. But when you look at the trajectory, somewhat has deteriorated. At the fore of that is also insecurity. When we look at all of the headlines that we've seen, banditry was not an issue back in the 60s. Neither was it at the 70s. It's a new type of ills or odds that this dispensation now has to face. And so, I mean, from his speech, he said that, everything is working, he's doing this, he's doing that. He chronicled about 12 high points of his administration, and that's the president. But is our government out of depth when it comes to dealing with insecurity? And I remember during the ex-SDS's book launch, when the former president, ex-president Obasanjo, was saying that it has changed, that the lines are so much of blurred that you don't know where Boko Haram ends, where banditry starts, and where kidnapping is. And so how then is this administration out of depth when it comes to tackling insecurity in its entirety?
When you look at all those odd things you've mentioned, you will discover that it is not of 3 or 4 years ago. It's been there. Look at what he has chronicled, and the issue of health, standard in Nigeria, the issue of, this country has passed through war. We've gone through war. We've come together to reunite and all that. A lot of things we've passed through. But now, this is a government that is trying to, put all those things together to make it work. So it's going to be a little bit difficult. And that is what I think this government, they should have a kind of, policy marketing department whereby people just have to tell the truth to the masses. It's not going to be an immediate thing. Now you are getting loans are given to students, and bursary is back. Some of those things are coming back. It's going to take some time. So, like he said, it's not even in the next 65 years. Most of us will not be alive here to analyze all this. Okay, God willing, But then the point is this gentleman, the president Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is trying to make all these things work. It can't be perfect or so good as what we want in the next 4 years. We must be deceiving ourselves. We must be dreaming. But it's going to take some time. But we as citizens, I think we don't have that patience to wait for the next 4 years or 8 or 12 years. Look at 65 years, all this, mess we find ourselves right now. And it's going to take some time. If Azikiwe has, been going abroad for medical treatment like he has chronicled, you discover that what's going on. So it's not strange for all these people. What has happened to our, constitution? The Constitution allows for all these things, and these people who are doing the Constitution, who are repackaging or packaging them, they made the Constitution in a way that it will benefit them because they know this might happen. Look at what is going on in corruption today. So how many people have we jailed really, and how many people have you pardoned, presidential pardons or stuff like that are coming back into the system to begin to work again. So you see all these things happening, and then you see some other countries whereby you steal a little amount of money, you are jailed or you are killed. So I'm not saying that all is perfect, but to really bring us back to the next 5 years, not even 30 years or 65 years, we need to do a lot, and the citizens have to do a lot as well. Look at the president said, I have given governors a lot of money, more than any other president, because of subsidy. I've given local government, but what is happening?
Mr. Joe, I can argue with you that giving governors a lot of money can also translate, again, allegedly, before anyone comes to my head, because we've seen a lot of decamping from the APC.
Right.
Can you argue that that is for the welfare of the state or for political reasons?
From APC.
So recamping from PDP, I beg your pardon, to the APC. Decamping.
Decamping.
Entire state structures.
Yes.
Sweeping through the southeast.
You know
would you agree that is for state welfare reasons or politically motivated?
It is whichever way you even look at it. The Constitution allows this for this mess. The Constitution allows for this mess. If you tell us that, look, you can't just decamp because of the goodies you are going to get in another place or because of the pardon you are going to get in another party, but are we holding them responsible? Have we recalled any senator or any rep? Have we recalled any one of them in some state you are paying? I mean, look at, we have automobiles being assembled in this country, but look at any motorcade. You see a lot of all these, brand luxury cars. Why don't we have, some meters? Why don't you have GAC? Why don't you have jelly and all these cars that are being assembled in this country? Even your senators will not buy that. Your councillor may not even buy that. You see, these are the problems we have. So is it the problem of Azikiwe? Is it the problem of Awolowo or Madam Fodi or whoever you want to call? But this is the problem of now. And we are not saying so much about that because the Constitution allows for some of this. And the president will tell you, look, I'm the executive. These guys, they don't have to do, I don't control their budget. And then the state assembly said, the governor will say, no, I don't tell them what to do because there's separation of power. So all these things are brought together because we have a constitution that we have to really repackage. But then who does that? The same people will go into the place and still repackage the constitution and bring clauses. You and I, do you have a copy of the constitution?
Of course I do. I'm a journalist.
Yes, okay, because you are a journalist. How many Nigerian citizens will have that? They will not even spend their money to buy it anyway.
Well, because they have to choose between a loaf of bread and, between food and... but Queen, if you forgive me, just for a second, right? Because I really want to come to you, Samson, and pick up from what he said. Now, first of all, is talking about the Constitution and whether it's enforcement, transparency, or what the Constitution allows. But most importantly is what he's saying, from his first submission, is that the more you look, the more things remain the same, never-ending world, I think the good book, the Bible, also says that about how the world will remain the same, and it's a never-ending world, never changes. And so chronicling all the speeches from every head of state and every president of Nigeria in the last 65 years, and your job as chief storyteller, archiving Nigeria's story, why have we not been able to look back into our history to inform the future, to correct this? The most simple things, constitutional reforms, insecurity, communal clashes. Why are we still stuck where we are? Or why does it seem like the divide has always been there, it's never changing?
I won't try to push you like I have the answer to why as a country we are not there. Because most of what we grew up with is we are just terrible with history, right? We don't teach them well enough in schools. And so there's a lot of disconnection between what has happened in the past and the realities that we are currently living now. Because I agree with him when he said the thing about insecurity isn't really new. Because, for example, you can draw a straight line between Boko Haram and Mai 13 uprisings that were happening in the 80s under Babangida. And so it's that they assume new colors, you put them in new bottles, but it's the same problems, right? And so I think in the way when we archive memory, part of our job, the biggest part of our job is curiosity about what's happened in history. And the point of it is that we learn enough to be able to correct present ills. And so the beginning of that is just knowledge, right? We have to know what has happened to even know how to start thinking about changing the cycles of repetition that happen with history. And so if a president today stands up and says, I'm going to do this and do that, we can recall and say, oh, somebody said this 30 years ago. Right. So, and this is what happened. Can we look at what happened that 30 years ago and make sure we don't repeat that now? Or maybe because it's been 30 years, there's a new way that we can think about those problems and how we can solve those problems.
I think before I come to Mr. Joe, I wanted to ask, you know, basically, these days they say, you know, Gen Zs are not interested. I'm not sure if you're a Gen Z or you're a millennial.
It's Gen Z.
Also. So, you know, we talk about how the youths are not being involved in wanting change because it's like, okay, everybody wants change, but it's like, it's the same thing. It's the same
like
speech, the same wedding vow every year, these 65 years. So my question is, based on the fact that you're having, you know, to tell stories with what's happening in Nigeria, how do you connect with the Gen Z? How do I put it?
How do you draw them in?
Yes, how do you draw them in? Because it feels like every generation, there's a way you need to communicate. So is it that with storytelling, that's the thing for Gen Z, that's the way they're able to understand in a short form? Because I tell you, strips, one picture, I just have an idea of what's happening. So is that how they get to understand that, okay, what's happening in this country is not just about TikTok, it's serious?
Yeah, so it's a lot of things, right? Again, like I said, a lot of our work is curiosity, and we want people to, so for example, when something happens that's currently like trending online, for example, the first thing we do is go into like the archives, as this happened before. And so if Toby Amuson complains, for example, that the AFN Center kits that are not like great, so we check. And we did check, and we found a similar issue from 1995. We found a similar issue from 2001. And so it's a way for young people to know that the problems that they are dealing with isn't new. And it also informs, we have to change this. In a way, we are giving people tools to take action. Because, for example, I think one of the not as reported parts of like Nigerian history, for example, is how we receive. So, for example, young people have this notion of, you know, our parents' generation, our grandparents' generation, they didn't fight back enough. They didn't fight oppression and this and that. But if you really look at Nigerian history, it's a very strong trend where people are just like really pushing back. You can go as far back as the Aba women's protest in 1929. There was a general workers' strike in 1945. There was a coal miners' protest in 1949. There was Ali Must Go. There was a student-led protest in 1978. There was a pro-democracy protest post-June 12. All of those are like really strong moments in Nigerian history where people protested. But like, if you had to ask like a young people, the first frame of reference for them would be like NSAS, for example.
Yes, because that's
and it would be like also like a new thing, like, this has never happened before in history. But so there's a disconnect, right? And what we need to fix is that disconnect, so that if you want to protest today, you can look back at a protest from 1929 or a protest from 1945. Look at their strategies. Did it work? What can we change? What can we do better so that we are protesting better years later? So we have to understand that we are part of like a long process, of a long journey, and you know, things didn't just start happening. There's a context for where we are currently, and we have to learn from the things that have led to where we are.
We did not turn 65 yesterday.
Yeah, we didn't.
It's been 65
and I must tell you, this guy's doing a great job.
A fantastic job.
You're doing a great job.
Yeah.
I mean, with all those, you know, things you've said, with all these, you know, bringing us back, and you have the statistics, you know, you have the figures. You're doing a great job, boy.
Thank you very much.
So, you know, we have to appreciate this kind of thing that is missing. You know, and it is not, you see, sometimes I think most of people in my generation will see them by the way they look, you know, and we don't see the content in them. And that is one of the problems we have. You see, we have to begin to understand history has been cancelled for a while, and we say, let's bring back history. Even in Germany, they knew what happened, but they are still saying it, that we had done something wrong, you know, and they don't mention the name of that guy, Adolf, they won't mention his, you know, surname, but they teach the people that, look, this is what this gentleman did. And by the way, this guy is not one of us. He came from somewhere, and he came to bamboozle us, and other people, you know, followed. You know, so these are the things that, you know, we have to begin to teach the people, like all the things he has just reeled out now. You see, my concern is this: for how long are we going to be looking back and be saying that we have to make a change, and we are not moving forward? That's the problem. So if
why aren't we moving forward?
It's the people. People are selfish. People are greedy. Even if the man on the street is the same poor man, you call poor man, you give him 2,000 naira for a charge card, he will go home peacefully again and say, look, forget about it. I'm okay. I don't want to die. You see? So, but then people will come back again and say, Fela said all these things. Fela Nicola Kukutina. He has sung about all these things. He has said a lot about all these things. What's happening? Yes, play any of the music. You begin to hear what is happening now. It has been there. You know. So, but where do we go from here? It is enough. Where do we go? And this is why I'm saying, looking at what the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is doing, I think he's making effort to make these changes. Look, when the former Vice President went to the hospital here, Duchess Clinic or Duchess Hospital here, He said, look, he's not traveling now. He wants to do that repair of his leg or whatever. He went here and he was treated. Do you know?
President
Shibajo, right?
Yes.
So he made a good point, and people now respected him for that. And I think until when we begin to have, the private sector is booming in that area, but can the people afford it? Now the government is saying, let's have a standard health insurance scheme for everybody. We didn't have that before. But there were some government system that said, look, health is free, education is free. Jaconde did it in Lagos.
Yeah, but there was the NHIS, which was the National Health Insurance Scheme, which was introduced by Obasanjo, if I'm correct.
Right.
I think that was in 1999,
Did it work?
2000.
How many people grabbed that?
But now we are doing that civil service level.
Yes, but now we are doing that, especially here in Lagos, you have Ilera Eco, and they're saying, look, you can get it. There will be some areas whereby they will miss the steps, but then we'll correct it. If we have missed the step at some point and we are corrected, it's a different thing. But where we don't just, and those who messed up with the money, where are they? They have gone and they are gone forever. You can't trace it. So these are the things we have to fight. We have to fight a system, or we have to bring back a system whereby you don't just steal government money and take it for granted that it is gone, it is gone. Right. You know, or you go and make a plea and say, okay, you stole 50 billion, let me pay just 3 billion and go away with the rest. It's not in our constitution, but we are bringing all those things in because it's paddy and no paddy for jungle, they say. So there's paddy in our jungle right now. So these are the things we have to begin to look at so that people like Samson will have a good record. You know, how many people knows this archive.ng? You know, so we have to begin to say, look, if you need any part of our history, go to this, you know, website and grab it, because then there was no place to keep them, and they can just burn a place and say all the files are burnt.
And the monkeys
but right
and
now,
rats
these guys,
came in and
yes, you remember the story? A monkey came to take some billions, rats even ate some things in the
a snake swallowed how many billion?
Billions.
So I think it's in I don't know.
30-something billion or whatever. And they swallowed it today. We didn't find the snake and the person who kept it. So a lot of things are happening.
And so, Queen, you want to go ahead?
No, you go ahead.
If both of you, right, you're working to archive our history, and you have long been a seasoned, you know, public affairs analyst, and so the both of you, best people to ask this question.
Yeah.
If you have to pick one domain for Nigeria to make a leap in the next 5 years, and you said that the president can't do everything, and you've also chronicled how the more we look, the more, you know, things remain the same. What domain should we be improving on at this time? Do you think it's security? Do you think it's infrastructure? Do you think it's, you know, politics or education? What's one that we can make a huge leap in the next 5 years?
Yeah.
You see, it's a very complicated question to answer straight in that way, because if you look at security, once the people are secure, look at what is happening in Kwara and in Kogi. You know, so this thing is spreading gradually, and we have to stop it at a point. But how do we stop it? We are overstretching even some of our military guys, some of the security guys. You know, so you see them being killed, you know, and you are not happy about that. Nobody is going to be happy about that as well, not even the military guys. So security is very vital. You know, when you have security, when you have peace in your neighborhood, when you have peace in your home, you know, you are talking about marriage, marital vows. You know, you make a vow that to do you part, and after 3 months you are saying that, look, I'm not going to wait for death. You know, is this quarrel of money is going to do us part? You know, so a lot of things have to be, but security, even the infrastructure you want to build, you need security to make sure that the people can walk without anybody harassing them. The business you want to set up, you want to make security a guarantee for the people so that they can even come to work. So security is number one. Then if you don't have good education, then how do you have the people to do all these researches we are talking about? I don't know how many research centers we fund. You know, but then before, now there's something good that there were researchers in Nigeria, there were research centers and people were doing, but now let's begin to fund researches. Let's begin to do something. If not for these Gen Z guys, who are those to talk to us about?
Very curious.
Yeah, they are curious to know.
Very curious.
You know, so now their curiosity is leading us to get something great.
Yeah.
And then that is why we can even manage our cell phones. You know, most people have phones of 300 and whatever. They don't even know how to manage it.
So security.
Security is number one. Even security, cyber security is part of it.
Cyber security, so all encompassing.
You know, yes.
Something yourself.
Yeah, to me, I kind of agree with him. Like, it feels like an impossible decision
Task,
to make, right? Because a lot of them are also like interlinked, right? So you want to say security because lives are involved. The longer it takes you to solve insecurity, the more lives that you lose. But you also want to solve electricity, the power issue, for example, because it's going to feel like our industrial enterprise.
Yeah.
And for example, if you solve insecurity and that is not solved, it means less people are like engaged in employment, which means insecurity can potentially return. And then you also want education. You want to get children off the streets, because the longer they remain on the streets, the longer you have, again, that insecurity explosion. So I think there's I was talking about a thing yesterday where I said, for like Nigeria's problems, it feels like there are like 10 things that have
Hydra heads.
Exactly, they have to work in concert with each other in a very specific order. So I would not want to make like a very specific, say, this one thing we have to fix, because it feels like at the very least we have to do 3 things at the same time.
And I'm glad you said 3 things at the same time, right? Because when you look at the insecurity challenges itself, as you rightfully said, it's education, is a lack of employment, or the high rate of employment, even though this administration would deny that. But also, it's also electricity as well, because it will fuel industrialization.
That's right.
It would increase employment, but employment also means skills, right? And the education has to come in.
Right. It's, this conversation just gets me. There's just something burning inside. You're like, But you mentioned that our president is doing his best. Of course he can't do it alone. Of course he said the worst is over. Amen to that. And so my question to both of you is, of course, a lot of Nigerians will say that the reforms are slow. Like the process is dragging. Like when are we going to wake up and
when are we going to feel it?
Light? Yes, we not at in 2025 we're still saying, oh, NEPA is light. Like it's challenging. And of course, you also mentioned the security people being at risk. So the people who are going to protect the people also have families. So they don't want to really just put their life at risk because government would do anything. So my question is, what can Nigeria do? How are they going to translate this vision for Nigerians to say, okay, we can see the work? What are the things you feel like they need to put in place for Nigerians to say, okay, hands up.
At least we're trying.
Something.
You see, it's going to take some time, like I said. So, but when you look at this electricity...
So patience.
Yes, not just patience. People can be patient with you, but do something that will make them to be patient.
What's that?
So, like, look at this electricity we're talking about. Those guys who are repairing generators now, the gens, they are not happy again because they're not making enough money to repair the gen. Those guys selling the diesel, they're not happy because people are not buying the diesel because now the government said, oh, okay, Gencos, Discos, call them any cool you like. So you now have ABC, categorization of what's it called, consumers. Now you have band A, B, C, and D or E. I don't know, but then you see that the government has funded them to a point, and this thing is really improving. Don't say it's working, but at least it's improving in most areas. I mean, yes, but now I don't see people shouting up NEPA where I am right now because about 20 hours. Even some people want this electricity to be shut down for 2 or 3 hours.
I know a rich person when I see them, but how they do it? But when I hear them say up NEPA, I know. I know you're rich because of how you say you don't hear people say up NEPA in your neighborhood.
He's enjoying the reforms.
You're enjoying the
I live in a village, don't mind me.
Oh, please.
Yes, I tell you, I live in a village.
What if it's village?
Good village, not the GRA.
No, my brother refers to his village. And when you think about his outskirts.
But I see that it's improving and people can be patient based on that.
Yes.
But when you are looking, let's look at this job thing we're talking about. The Ilaje people, the job people, they are fishermen. And the sea surge and all those things, they can't really go into the places, in the lagoon or the sea or wherever. So now we have to say, look, if you want to work, let's give you this fish farm in your area so that you begin to make money out of it. So that there will be just peace in that area. So that everybody will not be looking into how to really go and make Omonile kind of style and make money. So let's begin to work at something that will make the people happy. And if you say you want to give money to people, do we have the data of the people who are giving money to? You say you are giving certain amount of money, 20,000, 70,000 to people every month. Who are the people? Maybe these guys will begin to do the data of the people. And that look in Koshofe, in Magodo, in wherever they gave this kind of people. I think we need all the data. Without the data, we cannot even get everything that we want. We cannot even measure. What's the metrics of saying this?
As I say, data, that reminds me of last administration, late President President Buhari, the late president, where a lot of critics came out to say why he had to let go of the DG of the Bureau of Statistics, and that's none other than Mr. Yemi Kale, and then and then we started seeing the numbers sort of skew when it comes to the National Bureau of Statistics regarding unemployment, inflation, and a number of things. We started seeing the numbers shake, and really and truly, the economists and those who were looking at the numbers and the data at the time was saying that it was a big mistake to have let Yemi Kale go. But I wish we can continue the discussion. But very stellar contribution from both of you. I must say thank you, gentlemen, for coming. Many thanks to you, Mr. Joe Femi Dagunru. He is a seasoned public affairs analyst, and also to Samson Toromade, who is the honorary Gen Z amongst us. He's a chief storyteller at archive.ng. Well done to you guys for all the hard work that you're doing, and we look to have you back on as well on the program again.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for the info, gentlemen. Thank you.
This was super.
It was. This is our first big story for this hour. Join us inside the 9 o'clock hour for a second big story. You're watching Breakfast Extra here on News Central Television. We'll take a break.
And welcome back. For our second big story this morning, we turn to one of Nigeria's hottest industrial flashpoints. The shutdown suspended but not fully resolved between PENGASSAN and the Dangote Refinery. Over the past week, the union rocked the energy sector. It ordered a cut in crude and gas supply to the Africa-scale refinery, threatened nationwide disruption, and demanded the reinstatement of over 800 sacked workers, all in defense of union rights. A federal government brokered meeting produced a communique, and the union announced a suspension of the strike, but it explicitly warned that any breach would trigger a resumption with no further notice.
So yet tension remains. And PENGASSAN says it never signed any agreement and notes gray areas in the deal. Meanwhile, stakeholders, critics as well as legal voices are calling for clarity, lest this may be merely a truce before a bigger explosion. And so to help us navigate the legal, labor, and industrial dimensions of this development, we have with us, joining us virtually, Iroluwa Oguntuashe. He's a distinguished labor lawyer, and he joins us live virtually. Good morning and welcome, Iroluwa. It's good to have you join us this morning.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Good morning. I hope you guys are doing very wonderful in the studio.
Yes, we are. Since I refused to join us in the studio, we're doing well. I mean, first of all, happy Independence Day, by the way. Belated Independence Day, 65 years. 65 years into our independence, we are still at this crossroads when it comes to unionism and, rights of workers, private sector, public sector, which should be oil sector in limbo. So in your legal assessment, was PENGASSAN within its right to order a halt? I think that's the biggest conversation here, biggest bone of contention throughout the entire week when this started, whether PENGASSAN was within its right to halt a gas and crude supply to Dangote pending adjudication. How does that square with labor law or industrial relations precedents?
Okay, so we need to identify something, the implication of what PENGASSAN did. The implication of what they did can actually lead to an act of economic sabotage. And when we have a sector as sensitive as the oil and gas sector, we need to be very careful on how we navigate issues in that particular sector. Now, we're all in this country, and we witnessed fuel shortages. We witnessed how we struggle for fuel. We witnessed how our resources, were squandered on this seeming repair of the refinery, that never came to pass. And still, on this basis, we still witness a situation whereby someone had said, okay, I can do this, I can manage this. We all thought it was a joke because of, the seeming murky waters. We thought nobody could navigate through it. But here we are now. And so how do we now see this? For someone to now say that, okay, you know, what this person is entitled to for the purpose of ensuring that Nigerians actually enjoy a seamless distribution, a seamless flow of oil and gas, that this person is not going to get it because of the interest of 800 workers. I don't think that is appropriate. I think there are more creative ways to navigate issues of voltage. We need to first identify the Pengassan and Dangote. You know, is a trade dispute. And Pengassan are acting on behalf of the employees of Dangote who they claim they are their members. Please, let me quickly say that I'm totally in support of an employee joining a trade union. And not that I'm just in support of it, I'm in support because the law allows it.
Seem to be having.
We seem to be having.
So,
Irelua, if you can help us turn off your video, I think that would sort of help with the audio for now. If there's a chance you can help us turn off your video, so that I think that the video is lagging, it's making the audio lag because we're having difficulties hearing you.
And collective right to organize, about right to organize and now.
Yes, so
can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. I can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, okay. So what I was trying to say is that it is the right of the employees to join a trade union. Now, and I've cited sections of the law. I cited section 40 of the 1999 Constitution. I cited section 9, subsection 6 of the Labour Act. I cited ILO Convention 87 that talks about freedom of association and collective freedom of association and protection of collective interest. Now, I also cited Convention 98 that talks about rights is right cumulatively. If we read them individually and collectively, communitively, they all tilted to the fact that employees can join trade union. Now, trade union is now acting in the interest of these employees, and in the process of so acting, there has been a trade dispute between the trade union representing the interest of the employees and the employer. There are creative ways to solve it, and I dare say, when I say creative way to solve it, I don't mean involving in an act that can lead to economic sabotage. That is very dangerous. It's very dangerous, I dare say. And why do I say it's very dangerous? Even if I really need to commend the federal government for being matured about the way they settle the disputes. Because if the federal government had looked at the Trade Dispute Prohibition Act, the Trade Dispute Prohibition Act that allows the federal government to actually prescribe the trade union, then we may not be talking about it, because it would have been, a snowball between the federal government and Pengassan. Because what Pengassan has done to a very great extent is capable of shutting down the economy. So I think that going forward, I think parties should have learned their lessons from this, especially Pengassan. And I think that going forward, when issues like this happen, I think Pengassan should find a more creative way. What of negotiation? Now, I believe that Pengassan should have, in the first instance, commence negotiation immediately with Dangote. If negotiation fails, then they can as well report the issue to the federal government so that they can apprehend the dispute and they can come in. Now, we are witness to the fact that eventually it was federal government that resolved this dispute, but that could have been done without Pengassan doing what they did. I don't subscribe to that.
Now, federal government,
and I wish that in subsequent times they can change their procedure or strategy.
But it seems that we have a problem down the road. Whether or not, for federal government to have stepped in, there seems to be a problem down the road with Pengassan now saying that it did not sign any formal agreement with Dangote. But we're going to get into that We want to fix your connectivity. We seem to be having issues with your network. Let's go on short break. You're watching Breakfast Extra here on News Central. Our guest today is Iroluwa Oguntuashe. He's a labor lawyer, and we're just discussing the Pengassan and Dangote dispute that happened over the week with the reconciliation that federal government did have to step in. Let's go on a short break. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion. Stay with us. And you're welcome back. First, we do want to apologize. We're not able to bring you that last discussion, which is our second big story, and it was on the Pengassan Dangote Refinery dispute and the resolution from that dispute. We will try to bring you that discussion if we can, but unfortunately we cannot for now. And we did have Iroluwa Oguntuashe, who's a seasoned labor lawyer. But now we'd like to switch gears to our Wellness Central. This time, we'll focus on health issues that go beyond the hospital walls and touch on lives and communities as well as policies. And today, we turn our attention to an urgent but silent crisis: unsafe abortions. According to the World Health Organization, unsafe abortion remains a leading cause of maternal mortality and morbidity globally, with Africa carrying a disproportionate burden. And here in Nigeria, restrictive laws, stigma, and misinformation drive many women, especially young and vulnerable ones, into unsafe practices that risk their health and even their lives. But experts are calling for a new approach, one that prioritizes accurate information, improved access to reproductive health services, and crucially, policy reform.
And joining us, now we have
a report. Yeah,
yes,
we do have a package regarding this. Let's take a look at that.
Available statistics says an estimated 456,000 unsafe abortions are done in Nigeria every year, a situation that has left many gender advocates unsettled. Experts say this puts women in vulnerable situations, placing their lives at risk.
One of the low-hanging fruit is the issue around unsafe abortion. And data have shown that if abortion is allowed or permissible just for survivor of gender-based violence, that's rape and incest alone, we can crush maternal mortality by almost 50%.
It is indeed a great pleasure to see that our fight against unsafe abortion is widening in scope and gaining momentum, especially from the gradual increase in reporting abortion-related data on the National Health Management Information System and DHIS2.
They say that the growing statistics can be reduced via effective contraception methods, provisions of safe abortion care to women medically certified to need abortion services, including post-abortion care. However, there remains a few challenges stemming from the medical to the regulatory components within the system.
The emergency treatment of complications following abortion. It also involves evacuation of the uterus to remove the products or whatever is left inside the womb. It also includes family planning because it is key. It's one of the major components that will stop the woman from getting pregnant unnecessarily.
One is the health provider actually having the skills and also the confidence to be able to provide such services. Then another one is the health provider feel protected, both by the legal framework and also by regulatory bodies to be able to provide the service. Then also, lastly is the system actually supporting for the provider to be able to act as when needed.
With Nigeria contributing about 28% of the global maternal mortality rate, accounting for 75,000 deaths annually, experts say eradication of stigma, legal bottlenecks surrounding the practice of abortion will lead to safer practices and better outcomes following post-care. They are calling for an end to unsafe abortion practices, which puts the lives of women at risk. In Abuja, for News Central, Aishat Salihu.
And joining us this morning here in the studio to unpack this issue is Omolola Pedro, gender and disinformation reporter, whose work has illuminated how misinformation, silence, and stigma shape women's health outcomes in Nigeria. Omolola, you are welcome and good morning. Happy Independence, happy birthday, happy, we need to... Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome.
Thank you.
First of all, big shout out to Aisha Salihu for that report, and that it just brings us to the fore when it comes to discussing this matter. I miss you guys' this conversation, so I think you should continue with behind the scenes. What you guys were discussing? Because I was busy, typing away on my phone.
So I think we're just talking about how people get here. So of course, as a lady, it would also be how did you get to a point that you wanted to focus on reporting about unsafe abortions? Let's start from there.
Okay, so I have a recent report which focuses on the kind of sexual education we have in this part of the world and how it affects young people, young girls especially. I have observed growing up that issues surrounding sex, surrounding reproductive issues, said in whispers. Nobody wants to talk about them publicly. Yes, so much that when you call reproductive organs their actual names, you are looked as being a very rash person, or something like this person is spoiled in quotes. How they do the thing. So there's a lot of stigma around it. There's a lot of hush conversations. You can't even talk to your parents about the things that are happening to you sexually and reproductively. So I thought, it makes no sense because an average Nigerian girl, the parents do not even know when they began their menstruation. So if your parents do not know when you began menstruation, how are they expected to give you proper guidance? And when you don't get proper guidance, you get the improper one. When you don't get access to safe and healthy education, you get the unsafe and unhealthy one. In my work as a misinformation and disinformation researcher, I then observed that a lot of women have taking decisions fueled by misinformation. So you just see something online, you just go with it, you move with it. Nobody is asking questions, nobody is clarifying issues. Everybody just moves on like it's normal, which is not normal. And as to what brought me to unsafe abortions, I have experienced this, first-hand experience first, also people around me who have been survivors of unsafe abortions. You go through the procedure and when you come back, you do not remain the same. And it's difficult for you to even do a call out of the hospital where this happened because what you have just undergone is restricted. Yes, it's restricted under the law. You would be stigmatized. So you just get to deal with those issues on your own. And some of these issues even develop into more critical and difficult ones. And just deal with it on your own with no one to talk to. There's nobody speaking for you. There's no policy that would protect you. So you just live with it and deal with the damage on your own.
And so, two things comes to mind. Bear with me, right? I'm going to go on a tangent here. In your work and, filing disinformation, reporting about gender, misinformation, disinformation, and reproductive health, and also the stigma that surrounded them, I wonder if social media, but most importantly, pop culture has fueled that. Back in the 90s, there were a lot of Nollywood movies that the story arc was that the young girl was promiscuous or very outwardly, and then she got pregnant and she went to get an abortion, and then years after that she died, or could not give birth again. And so I really want you to talk about that, whether that has also fueled the stigma and the silence or the shame behind looking for or trying to get the right reproductive care for situations like that.
Yes, you are very correct, because at the end of the day, the kind of information we consume would determine the way we would react to issues or how we would approach issues, and this would also have its advantage and disadvantages. You're very correct as to how the social media, even traditional media, I think that's even like the main culprit. The traditional media, the social media, pop culture, our movies, the things we see, the skits we produce, the soundtrack. You don't go do it pass your something. Yes. And then they are showing you in future, the doctor is telling you that, she has had 25 abortions in the past, and as a result, her womb has been damaged, and then she cannot have children again, and all of that. So these things shape our idea as to how pregnancy and abortion works, because you do not necessarily have to be wayward before you get pregnant.
You know a man wrote the film. Just by the way the stories, you know it's men.
Yes, you would know, and then it would also be very obvious that it lacks deep research. It lacks inclusivity. Because when you want to write movies like that and you have a wide range of target audience, then it should not be you propelling your individual idea only. So it should be you being able to welcome every other person across different categories and denominations. But unfortunately, this is where we are.
This is where we are.
It's crazy. So you mentioned earlier that there were a lot of issues that they get to go through. So when we're saying unsafe, is there safe abortion? That's one. And can you share with us what are the of course there'll be trauma and then the shame and everything. What else do they really go through that we don't know about?
Okay, so to answer your question, first of all, abortion is illegal. Supposed to be safe.
It's supposed to be safe, but it's illegal.
But it's illegal, of course.
So that infringes on
the illegality infringes on the safety. So that's the issue. When it's legal, you are able to provide policy reforms. You are able to provide systemic ways as to which everyone would carry out these things in the most safe ways for women. But because it is illegal, everybody just wants to do what they want, the way they want it, with no one questioning them. And then the woman is left to bear the brunt of whatever may be the outcome alone. So apart from stigma and trauma, like you highlighted, there is also the issue of encountering sexual abuse and rape, because we have seen situations where women who are sedated while they were trying to undergo a procedure have been sexually harassed by the person who is doing the procedure. Some of them are even raped in the process of taking of the procedure. Yes. So I recently read a story of a lady who went in for a procedure, and after a couple of weeks, she found out she was pregnant. So how do you get pregnant? She was confused, because by her calculations from when she first got pregnant and when she had the procedure and then the current duration of the pregnancy, it is obviously not the pregnancy she went to abort that she's still carrying. So that raised the question of what could have happened between that time and this time.
I'm glad you're bringing this thing up, right? Because, I mean, like you rightfully said, one of the misconceptions that we have as a people is that the only time you need an abortion, or the only time that anyone needs an abortion, is when they've been outwardly or wayward or promiscuous and they've had unwanted pregnancies. But no one is factoring in, rape victims, sexual violence victims, and most importantly, teenage pregnancies as well, or even life-threatening pregnancies where economic issues with abortions is necessary. But in our climb, where we are incredibly religious, abortion is a taboo, whichever side you look at it, no matter the religion, traditional, Christian, Muslim. So can a policy change happen where abortion is not outrightly, I mean, it can be medically recommended? Is it medically recommended? Can it happen? Can there be a policy change?
Of course.
And what would that entail?
Okay, so I think this is where we should begin from, that the things we consider as cultural and traditional practices or traditional beliefs are the things we want to accommodate. Nobody forces them on us. We are doing them because we want to do them. There are a lot of traditional practices or cultural practices that have happened in the past that no longer happen. So it means that we have the capacity to accommodate other issues. We have the capacity to include other issues in what we deal with. So abortions, and as to how we could have political reforms. So at the end of the day, I believe that is the only way we can even put an end to safe abortions.
Right.
And I do not think that religion would come in the way of implementing these reforms. I don't think so. Because at the end of the day, the things that forms our religious beliefs are also personal beliefs. I don't think any part of the religious book speaks explicitly to abortions. those that may want to reference that part will talk about, oh, thou shalt not kill another person. But when we have a population census, do they count a pregnant woman as 2 people? Do we count them as 3 people? Still a single person. And that's because
you flip the whole thing on its head.
That's because it's just one person. So at the end of the day, it's not a human being. When you count them, you don't count them as it's at best a fetus. So you are not killing anyone. You are not committing murder. So I think it is the idea of thou shalt not kill anyone that religious people have with that's the bias they have against abortion.
So we're very biased people, right? And religion, let's even remove religion, our culture itself, right, makes us extremely biased, right? And when we look at the numbers, especially the death of women, we do not factor in that many are dying on the table due to unsafe abortions. What does this say about, women itself in terms of how we're documented? Whether it is also in the reporting, because you're reporting as well. What does it say about how we're being documented, our deaths, our lives, and also the issues that affect us?
So first of all, women's reproductive rights in this part of the world is still very heavily restricted. So we forget that reproductive rights are still human rights. And then the way we operate in this part of the world is, okay, I know this is your right, but this is the limit you can also go in exercising your rights. So you can do A, but when you get to B, slow down, or when you get to C, don't even do it at all. So it's as better as not having any rights at all. So let's say we don't have it, rather than putting a lot of restrictions to these things. And I also feel like we do not have enough documentation of women's issues. When you talk about contraception, different contraceptive methods, you would realize that it is still zero, because at the end of the day, the only thing that comes to mind is condoms, which is not being used by women themselves. And the major reason is also that you would get pregnant. Yes. And then we talk about pills. We don't have enough education about contraceptive pills. A lot of women do not even know that there are limits as to how you can take contraceptive pills in a menstrual cycle. Yes. There are those that are safe for daily consumption. There are those that are strictly for emergency purposes only. But we have women popping Postinor to almost every time they have sex.
To market these.
Yes. Which even has a lot of counterfeits in the market these days. There are a lot of fake contraceptive pills in the market these days, so much that you would not even know that you are already endangering yourself in trying to address these issues. So no documentation, no proper education. In this part of the world, the way we teach is through fear only. So you just preach fear and abstinence. We don't preach safe sex. We don't preach healthy sexual practices. So it's either you are doing it or you are not doing it at all. Instead of, okay, so even if you would have to do it, it should be this way or that way. I remember in secondary school then, our home economics teacher would want to teach us about sexual education, and then they tell you that the moment you begin to menstruate and a boy touches you,
that's the end.
You are pregnant.
You have twins.
You are pregnant.
Straight out.
And then you will see boys are just separating from themselves in class. Boys will be on this row, girls will be on this row. You don't want to play too much. I mean, I don't want to get pregnant.
I want to say things, but I want to say something, but I can't say it because
don't say it.
I can't say
it. You've touched on a lot of things. You've even gone back to secondary school, and we can attest to that. Growing up, even saying a guy is your best friend, they're like,
yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah, what do you mean? No, they say boys and girls can be best friends, not be friends.
So you've been reporting this, and of course, this is an amazing topic for people to see and understand that, life matters, or how do I put it? And I'm sure a lot of people looking at us were laughing and smiling. It's a serious issue, but at the same time, you can't always have a sad face. Nigeria's already, challenging.
Going through a lot, exactly.
So in your reporting, can you share with us, because I feel like people need to hear a story.
Oh, yes.
They need to know that things are happening. They say, it won't happen to me. I've done it.
In Jesus' name.
Can never be me. It will so be you.
So can you share with us a story that, Nigerians or, people in diaspora, everybody, our viewers would hear and understand that when we say unsafe, it's not a joke. It's not going to take Panadol, and you know that's one. And also, help us tell our viewers as to you talked about popping contraceptive every 2 market days, and how they need to regulate these things also for their safety.
Thank you. So there was a lady. So there are 2 stories, but I'm going to merge them together.
In your course of work, please go ahead.
Yes. So there is somebody I know who sincerely detests her mother till date. Detests her mother a lot. The mother also detests her. So it's a mutual hatred thing. They don't have a relationship. She was raised by her grandmother. So everyone condemns this lady. What could be wrong? Why do you detest your mother so much? A lot of people would also condemn the mother. Why don't you like your daughter? What's going on? What's the problem? Only for us to realize that the mother got pregnant with her from a rape case. So it was from a robbery. The mother's home was robbed, and then she was raped in the process. She got pregnant, and she was refused abortion. There's something the Yorubas will call Amuwa Olorun. This is God's will for you. That's what fate has in stock for you. So you just embrace it. And that was how she gave birth to this lady. But then she detests her so much because not only was she not ready to become a mother,
it was a constant reminder.
It was also a reminder of a very traumatic phase for her. Imagine having to carry a pregnancy gotten from a sexual abuse for 9 months. It's so crazy.
And then having to raise that
Yes,
child.
having to raise that alone even. I mean, there's no father in the picture, nothing.
Right.
And then you are just there dealing with it alone. And she got tired, of course, and then she had to abandon the baby with the grandmother. So was this baby who grew up to be somebody that I didn't know. And she also, shares the same hatred and detest for her mother. I have another story of a lady who got pills instead. I mean, the pregnancy was less than a month, so she got pills because she was told that, of course, pills would work for a less than a month pregnancy. Unfortunately, it did not. It worked, but it overworked, and then she began to bleed for a good number of days. She bled so much that she had to be rushed to the hospital, and even after she got to the hospital, she could not tell the doctor what had happened to her. When you do not give your doctor the accurate information, how would they treat you? But they just kept on treating her for a lot of things, taking scans, taking tests, but she knew what was wrong with her.
Sometimes the doctors know, but they pretend.
Of course, they know, but they need you to talk. They need you to talk. They won't go ahead with their assumptions.
It's very interesting how we don't even trust our doctors as women because of that trauma or the stigma that comes from.
Yeah, of course, definitely.
Yes,
so that's why a lot of women would even prefer to have female doctors attend to them because you feel like, okay, you are one of us. I can talk to you.
Clock that.
Okay, so sis, this is what happened. I did this, I did that.
That's the word, sis. Clock that.
Sis, I beg you. Now we must stop. The other place, you are not able to express yourself like that. You don't want to be seen as wayward or you don't know what you are doing. And then, I don't know, but she got treated, but it took longer than an average abortion would. I mean, if you go through a safe abortion in 24, 48 hours, you are fine. You are definitely fine. So any procedure that makes you go through a lot of other issues apart from that, then it was definitely unsafe. And I don't think that is good enough because a lot of people would bleed to death from the kind of situation that lady felt. She may have survived it, but there are a lot of people who would not survive it. Some of them, you even have stories of, they forgot something inside there when they were trying to. And also, there are women who even go through the procedure without having any form of sedation. No anesthesia, nothing, because they cannot afford it. So if you want to be sedated, you have to pay an extra fee. And if you do not have that extra fee, you would open your eyes wide like this, while these things are being inserted into you.
I had this conversation far back in, I think, 2022 when I was on radio, and the expert was sharing a story of how a woman was held down because she could not afford, it was a backdoor alley type procedure. And I think that she had had set of twins. The next pregnancy had to be 3, and she's like, I can't do it. It was around the cusp of economic downturn they were now experiencing. And of course, her husband had lost his job. So it was just her taking care of about 3 sets of twins. You know,
That's 6
so she
children.
had 6 children already. And now this next pregnancy,
triplet,
most likely was going to be a triplet from what she'd seen. And so she knew.
So she knew.
I mean, it's not funny, right? And so she was held. The story that she said was that she was held down by older women who also did work as midwives, auxiliary nurses, and it's let's not get into it.
I'm already
so she could hear and she could see. And immediately after the back was done, the doctor was, I guess, his back alley. He pulls out the injection and shows her, says, "See, I've done it."
Ew, oh my God, that's crazy.
And the woman was in psychiatric ward after, because it ruined her,
Of course she would.
So that's the reason why, I'm glad, because it just took me back 2022. And I think that these conversations need to be had on how we have to push for policy. I feel like, and this is not even a national issue or a continental issue. This is a global conversation that needs to be pushed. But we need to go on a short break. You're watching Breakfast Extra here on News Central Television. We're talking about policy, a push for policy reforms when it comes to reproductive health and unsafe abortions. Let's go on a short break. When we come back, we wrap up the hour nicely with the bow. Stay with us. And you're welcome back. Now, before the break, we're talking about a push for policy reforms, as experts are pushing for policy reforms as it regards unsafe abortions in Nigeria. And there's been reports about and highlighting the human cost of unsafe abortions, not just in Africa, but also globally as well. And joining us here on the program is Omolola Pedro. She is a misinformation and gender reporter who has been, just giving us a bit of insight when it comes to, disinformation, misinformation, stigma, and of course the cost of unsafe abortions in Nigeria.
And, you mentioned before we went on the break about how, someone shared their experience on radio and she went to the word psychiatric. So tying that to mental health, you also talked about the woman who gave birth and someone telling her this is God's fate for you. Having to have a child from an unknown man, having to feed that child and then resent
your life pauses.
Your life pauses. How is she supposed to function in society?
Because everyone has dreams. Immediately when you're pregnant, those dreams take a backseat.
Yes. So how
do you link it?
How do you link it? How do they manage? Are there situations where they are being taken care of mentally, checking up on these people? Because, sometimes you said 2 days, if they do it properly, they're okay. But, I'm sure that they leave there with some trauma of, I did that.
Yeah.
So how do they recover from this situation?
Okay, so I think that not every woman will be as crazy as I am. Because to be honest, I don't come back and feel like, I did that. I feel bad. I feel terrible for doing that. But an average woman would feel that way.
Is it crazy, the word you're going to describe? Because I feel like if you are educated and, you advocate for yourself, what comes to your mind at first is relief.
Yes, of course.
Does that make any sense?
Of course.
And I think that if you are a young lady who wants to move forward in life and who has huge dreams for herself, being able to solve that problem, it means relief, and it even fuels you to want to get better and do more for yourself and never bring yourself in that position as well.
Yes.
So I think that I don't want you to tag yourself as crazy.
Because that's what an average person would call somebody like me.
Well, you got a point there.
In that regard.
Yeah.
That's what that girl.
Yeah, human.
She did crazy. That kind of thing. Yeah. But an average woman who goes through this procedure definitely needs support from friends, from families. But it's even crazier because most of these women do not even get support from the supposed man responsible for the pregnancy.
Even the ones that they are married with her husband.
You get even the that's correct. Even the married ones who no longer want to have children, but unfortunately have gotten pregnant and now they want to abort, will not even get support from their married spouse. How much more the single women? So a lot of women even go through this on their own. No man in sight. I mean, the man responsible for it, not covering the financial expenses, not emotional expenses, nothing. They're just doing life on their own. So they need support. We need support, because I don't know, I may be in that position again next week, but an average woman who goes through that procedure needs support financially, mentally, psychologically, because some of them would love to keep the baby, to be very honest. I know a lot of people who would love to keep the baby, but their circumstances do not allow it. So it's not even because of religious bias or cultural beliefs. It's basically because I would love to have you, but wrong timing. I would love to have you, but I've not even eaten today, bro. If you come,
we're in this together.
Yeah, in soon. So just stay. Hold on. Let me make it first. You can always come back.
I feel like this conversation can take us on and on and on, because it keeps leading to one port. You know, it's exhausting, but, you know, thank you, Molola, for joining us and, you know, just having to have this discussion. And Judith, I'm not coming back from that story that you told me. It's scarring.
It pushed me back. So when you were saying that about the anesthetics and, you know, putting them under, just resurfaced that voice on the radio, you know, when they were talking, and I was like, gosh.
I've been to a hospital before, and I heard that very loud noise and cries. My thought was that maybe the person was in labor or something. But then he went from the labor sound to a very traumatic tears. I'm like, where is this coming from? And then the receptionist at the hospital reception was like, when they are doing it, it will be something there. That was then I go, okay, what's going on here?
It's something else. And of course, I would love to, the lady that you said, you know, her mother was raped and she was a product of rape. She needs to understand that she's been loved, she's human. And, you know, God has a purpose for her indeed. And, you know, she's protected. That's all I can say. It's sad that, you know, she had to be a product of that. But who knows? So thank you, Omolola.
Thank you so much. Again, you're watching Breakfast Extra. Let's go on a short break, shall we? When we return, we're going to switch gears away from human development, and this time to Delta, Asaba. But first, let's bring in the news. Queen is on standby, the Queen of Queens. They're there anyway. Stay with us.
And welcome back to Breakfast Extra. And my name is Queen Celestine, and these are the headlines within the hour. So we begin with electoral matters, where the European Union election follow-up mission has called for speedy electoral reforms and implementation of election reform recommendation reports, which followed the 2023 general polls in the country. The EU mission says it has met with stakeholders, including INEC, members of the National Assembly, political parties, amongst others, to deliberate on issues regarding Nigeria's electoral reform priorities. The mission urged Nigerian authorities to ensure the reforms are effected in order to avoid repeating the mistakes of the last general elections.
Since the 2023 elections, important work has been undertaken. The Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2025 and the Constitutional Review are ongoing, as you know. Both incorporate many of our recommendations. However, it is clear that the clock is ticking. What we find especially important is the strong alignment we see between the recommendations of INEC, of civil society through the Citizens Memorandum, and those of the EU election observers and the EU Election Observation Mission. Each of these three processes was conducted independently, and yet they point in the same direction. Of course, there are some differences, but the convergence is striking. All three call for greater transparency, for stronger accountability for electoral offences, for inclusive representation of women, youth, and persons with disabilities, and for reform that would give INEC the clarity and independence that it needs. It shows that there is a broad and shared understanding of what needs to be done to strengthen future elections.
Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has accused the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, of showing a lack of commitment towards improving Nigeria's electoral system. He spoke while hosting a European Union delegation led by Barry Andrews, where he urged INEC to work closely with the National Assembly to pass laws that ensure every vote count in free, fair and transparent elections. In response, INEC Chairman Mahmood Yakubu called on lawmakers to speed up amendments to the electoral laws, citing legal uncertainty as an obstacle. And in Rivers State, the Federal High Court in Abuja has dismissed a suit seeking the refund of all the state funds released, appropriated and expended by the administration of the sole administrator in Rivers. James Omotosho, the presiding judge on Thursday, ruled that the court does not have the jurisdiction to entertain the case. The presiding judge said the applicant's counsel should have made his research before filing the suit, which is void and initial. The judge also declined the request to transfer the case to the Port Harcourt Judicial Division. Early on Thursday, the court ruled that it does not have the jurisdiction to entertain the suit filed by another party against the declaration of emergency rule in Rivers State. And authorities have now released final figures of the number of dead and wounded at the tragic boat mishap in Kogi State, which occurred on September the 30th, 2025, as a passenger boat from Omogwa community in Ibaji local government area en route Ilushi in Edo State. The accident happened around Ogbu with a total of 80 passengers on board. Initial casualties figures released by the State Emergency Management Agency had claimed 36 persons were rescued as of Thursday afternoon. However, the updated figures released, an initiative by NEMA and SEMA, has provided a more accurate and verified breakdown indicating that 44 persons were rescued alive, with 28 bodies rescued and 8 still missing. Emergency response efforts are still ongoing to recover the missing and provide support to the families affected. And to health matters, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control says that the fatality rate from Lassa fever has risen in the country to 168 deaths, recorded between January 1st and September 21, 2025. The case fatality rate now stands at 18.5%, higher than the 16.9% recorded during the same period in 2024. According to a Lassa fever situation report released by the NCDC on Friday for its Epidemiology Week 38, the country has reported 7,792 suspected cases, with 906 cases confirmed across 21 states and 106 local government areas. Data shows that 90% of confirmed cases came from the 5 states of Ondo, Bauchi, Edo, Taraba, and Ebonyi.
Really aware on a lot of health issues, but I do go through news and see some news about health problems and all. So I'm not really fully aware about the increase of Lassa fever.
I'm a bit aware of it, but not so much, because I think the last time I heard of it was some years back when it just outbroke in the country. So I feel like what the government can do as a preventive measure and a way to create awareness, they could go to the slums, go to the hood. These are places that they may not necessarily have, the proper awareness about things like this, sensitize them and, just basically tell them what to and what not to do in order to prevent this.
Now away from Nigeria, South Sudan's opposition leader Riek Machar has told the court trying him for crimes against humanity that his position as vice president made him immune from persecution. Machar was suspended from his position last month after being charged with treason and accused of ordering an ethnic militia attack on an army base in March, which he denied. His supporters say the trial is part of efforts by President Kerr to sideline him and consolidate power. And that's all for the news at this hour. Let's go on the quick break, and when we come back, we have more discussions in Breakfast Extra.
And welcome back. Let's officially start our third hour in our show today, and our final hour, but this time with Extra Special. Today we turn to a story stirring strong emotions across Nigeria. The raid at the Happy Home Orphanage in Asaba, Delta State. On June 15th, operatives from the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP, stormed the orphanage and took away 8 children alleged to have been trafficked from Kano State. But the orphanage's proprietor and community voices are calling it abduction. NAPTIP says it acted on verified intelligence and with police support. Now, families are now scrambling to identify children with conflicting claims from both Kano and Delta states. Now, NAPTIP insists no child will be released until DNA testing confirms identities.
And at the heart of this controversy are questions of law, trust, and accountability. Did NAPTIP overreach? Were the children rescued or wrongfully taken? And what does this mean for how Nigerians engage with child protection institutions? Joining us to discuss this is Liman Shehu, investigator of NAPTIP. Mr. Liman, good morning and thank you for joining us.
Morning. Welcome.
Awesome. So, Mr. Liman, this conversation has been going on since last week. Apparently, we're not able to have the representative from NAPTIP join us last week to have this conversation. So, from NAPTIP's perspective, what precisely triggered this operation? What happened? How did you guys get to the point of going all the way to Asaba? Can you walk us through how the intelligence was gathered and verified before you moved in?
Yeah, good morning once more again.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This case does not started now. It started in 2018, 2019.
Okay.
With the children stolen from Gombe State. Not Kano, now Gombe. The children were stolen in Gombe. And police mount an investigation into the case of missing children in Gombe. Eventually, they arrested one woman named Hawa.
Okay.
She found indicate children from Gombe, Kano, Jigawa, and other exits and sell them out. So investigation continues. Hawa now mentioned one Ikechi as the woman that she usually sells these children to her. And Ikechi Koli was arrested by the police. Upon interrogation, Ikechi confirmed or admitted to have sold 5 children to Mr. Christopher, the owner of Happy Home Orphanage. This started in 2018, 2019. Mr. Christopher was only arrested by the police at that time. He admitted buying the 5 children from Ikechi. And he brought the 5 children by himself to the police, that these are the 5 children he bought from Ikechi in Gombe. So, and now the parents of the children came up, and eventually they were able to find out that there are only 4 among the 5 children brought by Mr. Christopher, the owner of the Happy Home Orphanage, that belongs to them, that they are their children. One, which is a lady, a small girl, she's never their daughter. But the association of the missing children, because of the rampant stealing of their children in that axis, they now form an association with their national chairman and the state chairmen and other executives, and they communicate through a platform. So immediately that one lady, that small girl was not able to be identified by her parents in Gombe. So the chairman of Gombe now snapped the girl, snap her picture and send it to their WhatsApp group. Eventually the mother of the girl came out in Kano. And before they could rush to Gombe, the girl has been taken away back to the orphanage because she's not being able to be identified at that place as their child. You can see this is the genesis of the case now. As I speak to you now, the owner of Happy Home Orphanage, Mr. Christopher, is facing criminal charges related to this particular case in Gombe, State High Court 1, before the Chief Justice. Both Hawa, Nkechi, and others are still in the prison. He was being able to perfect his bail condition, and that's why he's working away like this. So they now wrote to the agency. That is the association now in Kano. We wrote to the agency. We threw a complaint letter that this is the situation. The complaint letter was written in 2022. That was how it led to the operatives of the agency started gathering intelligence on how to tackle the issue.
Now, Mr. Lehman, I hate to cut you, but I don't want you to go too far as we're talking about the children and the claims of who their parents are. Now, we understand that there are claimants that are coming from Kano who have stepped forward to say that they are parents of those children, while there are also others in Delta who insist the children belong to them. And we know that NAPTIP has said that DNA is going to be conducted before the children are released to anyone. But giving the conflicting stories of who the parent is, who the parents are, and the origins of these children, how is NAPTIP ensuring transparency in this process for all parties involved, and most importantly, how to avoid re-traumatization as regarding the children?
In this situation, this is the NAPTIP find itself in the middle. We are not for any other party. We are in the middle now. And we say both the two parties should come so that the NAPTIP will conduct a very transparent DNA in a recognized government hospital. And whosoever emerges positive as the parent of any child will be reunited with his child. But this is the problem we're having. The owner of Happy Home Orphanage is running away. We send him a letter for the first time, he refused to come. We send him a letter for the second time, he refused to come. We send him an official invitation letter, he refused to come. Other side has come and given their statement. Well, for him, he refused to come. So we don't know how to conduct the DNA now. We don't know the mothers. We saw the women coming out to say they are the mothers. But yet these children were not taken from them. If eventually they are not the mothers, what do we do? These children were taken from his orphanage. He needed to come out, give us a statement and tell us that these are the children, these are the parents of the children from the other side. And we invited for the DNA test. But till today, as I speak to you, he's running away.
Who are the parents? Which parents? Is it the one from Kano or the one from Delta?
From the one from Delta. That is the owner of the orphanage.
Yeah, but both parents, whether from Kano or from Delta, like you said, they've all brought birth certificates, allegedly brought birth certificates for these children. And so have we also investigated to know where these birth certificates were issued from and who signed on them, so that we can get to the root of even the genesis of the birth certificates presented by both parties from either states?
This birth certificate that you are talking about, we have the one on the side of Kano, but as I speak to you now, the one on the side of Delta, we are seeing it in the media. It's supposed to be, it is the owner of the orphanage that's supposed to come with these parents, and so that officially to the agency, and this document will be submitted to us so that we could investigate it. It's nowhere to be found. We cannot collect documents through the media. These children were taken from somewhere. They were taken from his orphanage home. He knows the parents, and he said he has this document with him. Come up and give us the document. Come up and give your statement. So that the Director General, in her last press briefing, if you heard that, she said it clear that she's eager and the investigation into this will be timely conducted parents, unless it has been verified by DNA. But as I speak with you now, the other side are running away.
Okay, so
they are not forthcoming.
Right. So, Mr. Lima, you mentioned that the proprietor of the orphanage had been invited not once, not twice. They've sent letters, and so NAPTIP had to allegedly forcefully remove these children without warrants because he was absent there. And I'm coming. Allegedly. So the children are not babies. Apparently, they were 8, and to an extent, I believe that all children know who their parents are. Was it really necessary to move the children all the way from Delta State to Kano if NAPTIP were not certain if the children were being trafficked? Was there no situation where they could have kept the children closer so you'd be able to get to the proprietor or get all these details before transferring these children all the way to Kano? Because we're talking about a situation that happened from June, and this is October. And how long does it really take to do a DNA test to prove that these kids really belong to the two different parents from Kano and from Delta to claim the kids?
At this time, we're not even talking of the timing for the DNA test. We're talking of the owner of the orphanage should come and tell us who are the parents from the other side. Let them come first.
Right.
We don't have who are the parents there in our hand. We're only seeing them in the media. And even they should come to the office now. He is the one to come because these children were taken from his orphanage. He should come up.
But we understand that as of yesterday.
Let me reply you what you said earlier.
Right.
Concerning the children were forcefully removed because we sent him a letter. You are mixing up things. It's not like that.
But we understand as of yesterday that there was an arrest.
The invitation that came to him to come was after the operation. After the operation, the children has been taken, has been rescued. The children have been rescued from his orphanage. So we now keep sending him a letter. He should come up. Let him come to the agency and clarify issues. Till today, it's not coming. And the issue of intelligence, it is intelligence that led us to his place. The same person, the same people in the prison in Gombe that sold children to him. We don't know Happy Home Orphanage. I work in Abuja. I've never gone to work in Delta. I've never known. I've never any place in Delta. But the intelligence led me there because the people that sold the children to him, it gave us the address and everything of the orphanage, and we traced the orphanage.
We're hearing we're hearing allegations of arrest of the wife of the owner of the wife of the owner of the orphanage, and that this happened yesterday or the day before yesterday, while he was absent. And so one has to argue here: what was the purpose? If she was arrested, what was the purpose of that arrest? And how does it, play into the wider investigation that's ongoing? How does it tie into the wider investigation that's ongoing with NAPTIP and the orphanage?
That's very nice. The agency is investigating the orphanage, not one person. Everybody at that orphanage is surrounded by the family, the husband, the wife, and the child, and the children. So now we have sent an invitation to the man, come. So he's on our side. Now we needed the woman. What we are saying, I was there in Delta yesterday. And we sat down, we explained to them, they are doing this. They are only trying to slow the investigation that the agency is carrying. We are picking these people. We needed their statement. The agency need to take a decision. These are the people that are concerned that are running the orphanage.
So are you saying that she was not arrested, but she was invited for you to take statement, for the agency to take statement, and there was no arrest?
When we get there, we went with policemen. We never go alone. We went with policemen, and we invited her to the station. We brought her to the station. We kept her there in the station for more than 3 hours. If at all we wanted to take her to Abuja, I think nobody will see her there. Nobody will come back to the station and meet her. 3 hours is enough for us to get her to go far. But then we allow her to sit down there in the station. We told her that call your husband. If the two of you can come, we will record your statements. So that the agency will have a document in their hand to take decision.
Right. So, Mr. Shehu, you mentioned that intelligence led NAPTIP to the Happy Home Orphanage. And so my question is, allegedly there were about 26 children in there or more, and you took only 8. So if it was a situation of rescuing children who they said has been missing from Kano since 2017, what happened to the remaining kids that was left there?
I guess your figures is not right.
Oh, please correct me.
Yes, I led the operation into Happy Home Orphanage in Delta, from Abuja. I went to Delta, and the children I met there are more than 70. In fact, out of the 70, I witnessed almost close to 15 newborn babies in that place at that time. But the target of the agency is the children stolen from Kano. not the entire children. And we gather all the children. Me, as a matter of fact, I don't know the children stolen from Kano. I don't know them.
Right, so how were you able to identify them when you walked in and saw over 70 children plus newborns?
It's not me that did the identification because I don't know them. But in the mix of the operatives that went there is the chairman of the Association of Kano Missing Children, who has his pictures and all identities in his hand of the children that got missing. So all what I did there as a head of operation, I gathered all the children in one place for profiling. And in the profiling, he was by the identity of what he has in his hand, he was only able to identify 8. And I said, okay, we'll go with the 8 alone. The remaining, we have already written a letter to the Commissioner, Social Welfare and Community something in Delta State, that the activities of this orphanage is getting out of. In fact, even when the man went to him,
Mr.
to complain, the same went to the Commissioner.
Mr. Show, I don't want you to go too far, right? You said that this operation, you led the operation into the Happy Home Orphanage, and were able to identify 8 of them who you alleged to have been abducted from Kano 7 years ago. And so I have to ask, before embarking on this operation, I'm sure that there was a long road in your intelligence gathering. In your intelligence gathering, how many children were missing from Kano? And did you identify every single one of them in Happy Homes Orphanage, or is there more still missing?
At the point of writing, at the point they wrote their complaint letter to the agents, Kano State, the association are claiming that more than 160-something children were stolen from Kano. And they have their pictures, they have their documents, and they have all the necessary evidence to identify them.
So how did this intelligence lead you to this orphanage?
Okay, that was earlier my discussion, what I was discussing earlier, and you cut me off. So let me continue. Yeah. We visited the Gombe prison, and we met with Hawa, who is still in the prison till today. We gathered intelligence of all what she said. And we met with Nkechi, who sold children with the same owner of Happy Home Orphanage. She is still in the prison today. All these people are alive and they are in the prison. We interviewed all of them, and they gave us all the necessary intelligence we needed. In fact, at that time, we don't even know where is Happy Home Orphanage in Delta. I can try to tell you clearly, and Nkechi gave us the location of Happy Home Orphanage. And we went there purposely because of that particular girl alone that was taken to Gombe. And Gombe people say that it is not their child, but the mother came out in Kano. And eventually, when we get there, with the number of children who make us to gather them all for profiling, we were able to identify the girl as the girl being taken to Gombe, and they were able to identify another 7 as their children.
Another 7. Sir, as we wrap up this discussion, because we're pretty much, I wish we'd have more time to push this further, but just very quickly, my final question for you. What happens to the remaining 92 of the over 100 children that you said that in your course of investigation have been reported missing? Is there other orphanages that are on the list to be raided to look for these children? And across what states?
We are still gathering our intelligence on the other orphanages.
Okay.
And when we are satisfied and okay, that the intelligence will gather, okay, we'll strike. We'll still go to rescue the children. If we have, we'll rescue. The agency only rescue children.
Right. So, Mr. Shiu, I understand that the focus of NAPTIP is to, rescue the children who were missing. My question still goes back to the remaining kids at the Happy Home Orphanage. If you were able to rescue the one, are you saying that your focus was only for the children that allegedly are missing from Kano? What happened to the welfare of the other remaining children in this said orphanage, since the orphanage is already tagged as, being fishy?
Let me tell you what happened yesterday. Yesterday, when I spoke to you on phone, I was in Asaba, and I visited the same Happy Orphanage yesterday. That was why you said that the wife of the owner was arrested. I was there. He has successfully now move more than 50 or 60% of the children, because as we stayed there, they are no longer there again. No newborn babies again. What I saw, the children I saw in the orphanage, they are not much. But at the point of that operation, immediately after the operation, the agency wrote immediately to the commissioner, Women Social Welfare, that this is what is happening in social place within your domain. Please take action. Because at that time, if we say we are going to carry the whole of this children, we don't have the facility at that time to do it. We had it, the operation has a target.
Okay.
Well, but the question is, if he come out, when he come out, he will tell us what is happening. How is he getting those students? Where are they from? Where are their parents? All the questions that you come to answer, that he's running away.
And now, as he's still at large, what happened? What's the fate of the wife? Has she been released, or is she still, at the invitation, in quotation?
You know that yesterday we are about to be attacked in Delta. Yes, we are about to be attacked. In fact, right inside the office of the DPO, certain group of people that call themselves human rights, I don't know whether on top or something like that, they came into the office of the DPO trying to protect our constitutional authority from performing their duty, that we cannot do what we are there to do. In fact, we have to leave office of the DPO down to the commissioner of police office with them. Okay. They say we cannot do it. So I don't know.
The question again, just very quickly, what's the fate of the wife? Is she still in police custody, yes or no?
No, I released her yesterday.
Okay.
And I'm backed up.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr.
What I did was I gave her an invitation letter. And I told her that her husband wrote a letter to the agency that he will be in the agency on the 9th. I hope he will be there, because that is what he keep doing. I'll come today, I'll come next week, I'll come next month. 3 months now, he refused to come. If her husband is coming on the 9th, he should come along with her.
All right. Okay. Mr. Lima Shehu, I must say thank you. We're pretty much out of time at this time. Yeah. Mr. Lima Shehu, many thanks. We appreciate you for coming on. Mr. Lima Shehu is the head of operations at NAPTIP. Give us a bit of insight following just Asaba orphanage allegations and disputes and allegations of abduction of children, and just the disputes about their origins. Now we switch gears back to a discussion that we had earlier on the Inside Out 9 o'clock hour. And it's about the Dangote Refinery labor issue with PENGASSAN that have now suspended the strike, but the tensions still linger. Now, earlier on the program, we had our guest, Iroluwa Oguntuashe, who is a labor lawyer, distinguished labor lawyer, who joined us earlier. Now, he's back on. Iroluwa, it's good to have you back. Can you hear me? We seem to be having issues with your audio there. Let's go on a short break to fix that audio, shall we? Stay with us when we come back.
Can you hear me?
There you go. Finally, we can hear you. Iroluwa, now, so earlier before we went on that break due to network connectivity, you were talking about, how PENGASSAN, you stand for the rights of workers, but there was so much when it comes to them, meddling with Dangote and what it meant for our crude oil refineries, and just pretty much shutting down the economy and the nation due to this action by PENGASSAN. But you also preempted a problem that would be on the way, that's going to be we're kicking the can down the road. And let's preempt that, because PENGASSAN has said that they did not sign any formal agreement with Dangote and described the outcome as, a lack for a better word, just a pause for now. If a formal agreement isn't signed with Dangote, what do you preempt will happen in the future?
Okay, so when we talk of the issue of whether they sign agreement with Dangote or not, I think we need to move beyond that, and we need to move to finally resolving the issue. Now, for now, the issue has been, at least on the face of it, resolved by saying that the workers that are involved will be reabsorbed into other subsidiaries. Now, if that is done, I think that should end it, because we also should not forget the fact that there was a trade dispute between Dangote and PENGASSAN. And this trade dispute was apprehended by the federal government. And in the apprehension of the trade dispute and the resolution, at least on the face of it, there is this resolution on the part of both parties that the employees that are being involved in this will be reabsorbed. So without prejudice to whether a collective agreement is signed or not on how they are going to resolve it, everybody is aware of what parties, agreed on. In fact, I'm also aware that PENGASSAN even came out to admit it, that this is what parties have agreed on, on the face of it. And in fact, admitted, need no further proof. That's the position of the law. So to that extent, I would think that, if Dangote can go ahead and implement what has been agreed on by reabsorbing the workers that are involved into others Dangote subsidiary, in consonance with what parties, discussed, I think that should reasonably solve the issue and parties can move on peacefully.
Right. So if for instance, if the conflict continues, what legal principle or precedent would govern whether PENGASSAN can legally resume similar actions?
Okay, so when you say I think if I understand you, you're trying to say that if the dispute continues, and that's why I said the other time. Now, can that dispute continue if Dangote reabsorb the 800 workers into the subsidiaries? I don't think so, because that was what was agreed on between the parties, whether they sign an agreement to that or not. PENGASSAN came out to also admit that this is what they agreed on. And I think I also watched, the meeting on the TV where they said that what they will just be doing is for them to wait and see whether these workers are reabsorbed back. And that's the basis upon which they suspend the strike. So for the issue to recommence, for the dispute to commence again, is going to be if Dangote fails to reabsorb into the other subsidiary, and I don't think Dangote should fail to do that. In fact, from what I heard that the position that was finally adopted was even a position that during negotiation between Dangote and PENGASSAN, it was a position that Dangote has already broached to them that can we have this? Can you guys have this for us to resolve this? And unfortunately, they said no. They maintain that they must be reabsorbed back into Dangote Refinery until the federal government came in. So I will assume that there will not be any dispute again, but assuming without conceding, assuming there is now a dispute. Now, for PENGASSAN to decide, before they can decide to now take the action that they took, I think, there are specified procedure under the law, the Trade Dispute Act, that states that when there is a dispute, this is how it should be resolved. Section 4 of the Trade Dispute Act is very clear. Mediation. Section 6, conciliation by the federal government. And even if we now look at that provision of the law till Section 18, it prohibits PENGASSAN from doing anything until they've exhausted the procedure for resolution of disputes, both internal dispute settlement machinery and external, which is mediation, conciliation, industrial arbitration panel, before they can even proceed to do anything. And if we also look at the Trade Dispute, the Trade Union Amendment Act, 2005, particularly Section 31, subsection 6, it also lists procedures that trade union must pass through before they can decide to go on strike or do any form of industrial action or something relating to that. So I would believe that these are the things that PENGASSAN should be looking forward to exhausting before taking an action. But I would also tell you, unfortunately so, that we've witnessed a situation whereby procedures are practiced in abeyance of the law. Procedures are done, or things are done, actions are taken, conduct are performed without not considering the law. I want to believe, and of course, expectedly, rightly so, that PENGASSAN is a product or conception of the Trade Union Act. They are registered under the Trade Union Act. So this being so, they are also bound to follow the law as contained in the Trade Union Act and the Trade Dispute Act and other enabling law. So in as much as they have the right, I wouldn't say that they don't have the right to strike. Please, I will not say that, because there is a procedure, but there's a procedure for them that if they want to embark on strike or if they want to picket or do something, these are the things that they need to do in the Trade Dispute Act and also in the Trade Union Amendment Act. And those are the things that they must do. It is not a discretion on them. The law doesn't place it as a discretion. The law places it as a mandatory obligation on them. But we've witnessed a situation whereby several strikes has happened and several trade unions have gone ahead to get themselves involved in industrial dispute without not following the strict procedures. So I would think that, I think it's high time we start following the law to the latter, because there is even a punitive provision in the Trade Union Amendment Act of, I think, 10,000 for trade union that failed to follow that procedure before going on strike, and even imprisonment for 6 months or more. So these are things I believe that they should start doing, else we should start enforcing the law. Because I wouldn't want a situation whereby Nigerians will suffer for the action of a few, you know, for the failure of someone not to strictly follow the law. So I think that parties at this juncture should be aware of the enabling legislation and follow it to the latter. That would be in the event that Dangote fails to implement what parties have agreed on.
Right.
There's a twofold question that I have for you. I think the first was, you know, prior to this suspension, the National Industrial Court had issued an interim order restraining Pengassan from cutting gas and crude to Dangote, citing risk of irreparable damage to the economy. And we saw that with 60% decline when it comes to oil barrel productions or crude oil production in our economy. So how do such interim, you know, rulings interact with constitutional labor rights? I want us to discuss on that. And as we're talking about that, what precedents is this action from the union set? Possible, you know, precedents is set, you know, for just future reference?
Is a precedent of impunity. Let me start from there. Is a precedent of impunity. The law is very clear. The court has the right to adjudicate between parties. Section 6 of the 1999 Constitution is very clear. Now, Section 287 of the 1999 Constitution as amended is also very clear to the fact that when a court makes an order, parties are bound to abide by that order of the court. That's why the court is created. That's why we are not in a banana republic. So the court has given an interim order. As much as the order is interim, the court can also renew it subject to some facts and circumstances. But to the extent in which the order has lasted, parties are bound to follow strictly the order, to comply themselves strictly sensu with the order. So if as at the time the court gave the order, if after this time Pengassan went ahead to now do what they've done, I think that is extremely contemptuous. And I think that when we have things like this, at least, you know, on the face of it, so that citizens will not feel that the court just merely they are built or they exist in abeyance, that they are toothless bulldog. There are also ways or procedures when someone fails to follow the order of the court. There are ways in which that person can also be punished. That person can be brought to court to come and tell the court, to come and show cause why that order is not being fulfilled. But in the name of we are trying to settle a dispute, and we also don't want to conflagrate, you know, the situation. We don't want to eat up the situation. We have a situation whereby all these things are pushed to the minimum. But again, you know, I don't think that is fair, because they would also do it again. And that's why I said it's a precedent of impunity. If a court has given an order, a court of competent jurisdiction, National Industrial Court, pursuant to Section 254 of the Third Alteration Act 2010, they gave an order, and a party against whom the order is given, you know, now fails to, except they say that they are not served with the order or they are not aware. But if they can show, or it can be shown that they are aware of that order, but they flagrantly refuse not to follow it, I think that's extremely contemptuous, without prejudice to any law that we have. Because even if we look at Section 40 of the 1999 Constitution that regulate freedom of association, and by extension says that, okay, trade union can go on strike or get themselves involved in industrial disputes. We should also note that there is also Section 45 that now says that, you know, nothing in Section 37, 38, 39, 40, and 41 of the Constitution shall invalidate any law that is reasonably justifiable in a society, in the interest of peace, in the interest of national security, in the interest of public safety, and even in the interest of also protecting the right of others. So people should not look at Section 40 in abeyance. They should also read it cumulatively with Section 45. So that would mean that where another person's right stops is where another person's right begins.
Okay, so you had mentioned that, you know, we've talked about the sacked workers being redeployed to subsidiaries of Dangote. But the union also admitted that, there were gray areas in the current deal, like undefined timelines and, ambiguity around job placement or guarantees of, roles. People are concerned as to would they get their same roles. From your own perspective, how dangerous are these gaps? What should have been included to make that, to make this safer, to avoid, another strike?
That's a very good question. Now, when talking about gaps, and that's why in fact, as soon as a court gives an order and there are gaps, I'm talking about courts now. I'm not even talking about the government. There are opportunities for you. There are windows for you to go back to that court and say, my lords, or my lord, please, we seek interpretation for this order so that we can get proper clarification, let alone on the platform of conciliation. Now, what conciliation is saying, or what mediation is saying, which the federal government have done in this case, is that there will be two parties on the other side. The federal government will be sitting on the conciliatory table or mediation table, trying to make parties together. So I don't think it is reasonable for them now to be complaining about gaps. Why can't they resolve the gap as at the time these things were being discussed? These are not things that are esoteric. These are things that a reasonable person could think of. So if the proposal is that we are going to reabsorb the 800 workers into other subsidiaries, then I think the things that should have been fine-tuned there and then is the time, is which subsidiary, the names of the people that will be reabsorbed, so that everything can be very clear.
Right.
But I think for a party to now be coming and say that we have gaps, when the gap should have been resolved there and then, this is not an order of court. It is just a proposal that parties in the interest of peace and safety and in the interest of national security, in the interest of all Nigerians, they need to come together and agree on. So I think at this juncture, in fact, they can still go back. Even they can still go back to the federal government. Federal government can still call a meeting to resolve all these things. It is not late. It is not late. So I don't think that's an excuse.
So at the end of the day, there's, like you said, it has set precedents. There are still gray areas with this communique or this agreement in terms of reabsorbing the 800 plus staff into other subsidiaries of Dangote. There's also a lot of, impunity. You've said it all. And so what then happens in terms of our future when it comes to picketing, labor laws, rights, just moving forward as we sort of chart the course when it comes to industrialization, especially at the oil and gas sector, because it's still growing, and, as more private players begin to come in, how can we fine tune it, so that what has happened should not happen again?
Now, we need to consider something. Hitherto, it has always been federal government being the main player in the oil and gas sector and also managing disputed relationship between PENGASSAN and other sectoral trade union playing in the oil and gas sector. But new thing has happened now in the sense that we now have a private employer. I've always noticed, and it's my personal opinion, please, I've always noticed that whenever there is a dispute between a trade union and a private employer, it's quite different from where there is a dispute between the trade union and the government. The government is the largest employer of labor. The government sometimes, in the interest of public safety, may even jettison sometimes making profits. But again, this may not be so in the case of a private employer, because I believe that the management of Dangote, before the refinery was constructed or established, there are a lot of monies invested into it. There are a lot of loans that invested into it. And there is no private individual that established, something as big or gigantic as a refinery that wouldn't want to make his profit within the shortest possible time, or that wouldn't want to repay the loan within the shortest possible time. So to that extent, there is likely to be tension, especially because what to be germinating in the mind of a private employer is that, well, if I allow these people, I'm saying, please, I'm not relating it to the management of Dangote. It is my opinion. Okay. If we allow these people, they may come and disrupt our operation. And we can't afford that to be done because we need to make profit. Every second count, every minute counts. On this basis, there will be agitation, there will be apprehension, there will be preemption. And when we have all these things, it will really impact on the relationship or on the basis of the industrial peace and harmony that should naturally exist between trade union and private employers. Now, so that would mean that the private employers would also want to be extremely creative, and that's why we're seeing all these things. So what I would suggest is that going forward, PENGASSAN should realize as a trade union that everything is not about strike. They need to be more creative beyond strike. Now, they need to be creative and go in depth as to also look at the principle of industrial peace and harmony and how that can be more enforced. Look at the principle of industrial peace and harmony and how that can be more enforced. So when we talk about industrial peace and harmony, look at how they can have a smooth relationship between the employers, private employers that are within the oil and gas sector, such that even when they are making their demands, they would also be making their demands, putting into consideration the interest of the private employer in the oil and gas sector that want to make profit. I think the issue that we're having here is an issue of dispute of interest. One person is saying that in making your proposal, you are not including me, in the scheme of things. And don't let us forget that the law that regulates private employer is quite different from the law that regulates government employees. The law always remains that a private employer can hire and fire without a reason. So those are the things that would also be coming into the head of a private employer. So what I would suggest is that in trying to meet with them, in trying to sit at the bargaining table with them and draw out a collective agreement, they should do it in such a way that would engender industrial peace and harmony, and not one that would also exacerbate the dispute of interest that will naturally happen between the trade union and the private employer.
All right. Irelua, I must say thank you for just taking out the time to join us, in spite of how the connectivity was bad, but you still did your best to rejoin us again. Thank you so much for your commitment as well, and always insightful every time you come on. Irelua Oguntuashe, he's a seasoned labor lawyer, giving us a bit of insight following the dispute that happened earlier this week between PENGASSAN and Dangote Refineries. And that's how we wrap up the show for today. Queen of Queens has been my co-host.
Amazing.
Yeah, I had some seasoned women. I mean, like women. Oh my God.